Welcome to the Brewing Wellness Podcast, nourishing UFT members, one conversation at a time. Brewing Wellness is a podcast created by the UFT Member Assistance Program to support the mental health and well-being of our members. In order to do the work you do every day and be present for your loved ones, students, and patients, your cup has to be full. Brewing Wellness focuses on mental health and wellness topics that can help us all thrive in our professional and personal lives. We'll be releasing a new episode on the last Monday of each month. Remember to listen to the Brewing Wellness Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And please, don't forget to subscribe. Now, let's get started.
Hello, and welcome back to the Brewing Wellness Podcast, hosted by the MAP UFT program. My name is Carrie Yeffet, part of the UFT's Division of Education, a special education staffer for professional development. And today I am joined by Nicholas Sieben, a licensed acupuncturist and healer based in New York City. Welcome, Nicholas.
Thank you. Nice to talk to you.
It's nice to have you. So in today's episode, we will delve into the relationship between mind and body, the impact that our mental health has on our physical being, and how acupuncture can be a tool to help manage some of those physical symptoms that we're having to stress. This topic is so important and relevant as many of us experience stress and yet are unable to identify those daily stressors that are causing the physical aches and pains. I'm looking forward to better understanding how the two are connected. So, Nicholas, again, thank you for joining me. How are you today?
I'm doing very well.
Good. Glad to hear that. So can you tell our audience a little bit about you, your background, how you became an acupuncturist?
Well, it's interesting because I come from a very working class family in Nebraska where things like acupuncture aren't very popular. I didn't know anything about it until I came to New York, and in my 20s, somebody brought me to meet this woman who did acupuncture. I didn't know what it was, but I'm always up for an adventure, so I said yes. And she asked me what can she help me with. So I didn't know what to say. She said, anything that's going on with you. And I said, well, I've had chronic asthma my whole life that the doctors said would never go away. And all I could do was manage it. But mostly the way they told me to manage it was don't eat this, don't run, don't do too much physical activity, just deal with it. Take all these medications and take a nebulizer. So
that sounds very limiting.
It was. And I must say, in 2 sessions, she cleared the asthma, and it never came back.
Wow.
So I kept going back to her, and, I was inspired. So I said, well, how about my digestive problems? I've had extreme digestive problems all through my childhood. So we started clearing that up, and then we really went deep into it, and I saw that she could also work on my emotions. She could work on, any of the traumas from my childhood, my anxiety, my depression, my insomnia. And what she told me is it was like architecture, in that she was working on all levels of my body at once. So I was seeing that my physical symptoms were improving, but also my mind, my mental state was improving. My anxiety would go away. I was sleeping better. My depression wouldn't come, as it always did. I started feeling happier, but I also started feeling stronger, because I never felt strong. I was always kind of a weakly, sickly kid. So it really changed my life. And then later on, I had some sort of a strange sort of wasting condition going on, which was nobody could figure it out. They were doing tests at the doctors, and nobody could figure out what it was. And I worked with acupuncture and herbs, and it corrected it. It took years, but it corrected it. So I think that acupuncture changed my life, definitely, and it might have actually saved my life. So after that, I thought I want to devote my life to learning how this works, helping other people, but also knowing how it works so I can continually help and treat myself.
At the same time. Wow.
Yeah.
And you touched on some things that many of us have. Eating disorders, sleep interruptions, anxiety. So,
yeah.
Wow, you're a true example, so to speak.
Now, the root of it I felt was because, acupuncture in Chinese medicine is 2,000 years old. It's really ancient. So it's been around a long time, and it began at a time where mindfulness, which is now a word I think everybody's talking about, usually related to meditation and yoga, it was developed at the same time as these techniques. Mm-hmm. The emphasis is on mindfulness, which is mind-body, because a lot of us, we're living in our minds all the time. We're either not in touch with our bodies, or we're totally in touch with our bodies and don't really know what we're feeling, or maybe even what we're thinking. So techniques that get us into our bodies and also allow us to be a little more mindful seems to, and at least in my case, have made a huge impact. I think that it really was the only thing that worked for me.
Yeah, that's impressive.
So,
that's impressive.
Yeah.
And that actually is the segue to the next question, which you started already, is what to you is the mind-body connection? And you mentioned the mindfulness word. You mentioned the techniques. You want to expand more on that? Do you want to add some other, layers to it?
Well, without getting too technical into boring theory,
No.
which I actually don't think the theory is boring. It sort of was revolutionary for me. The ancient way of looking at the self is that the mind is not just in the head. It's not just in the brain. The mind and aspects of the mind are through the entire body. That in order to work with our mind in the way that we feel, we have to work with the physical body. We have to work with the lungs. We have to work with the heart. We have to work with the liver. We have to work with the stomach. And actually, Chinese medicine has developed this pretty amazing psychosomatic model where they can trace physical symptoms that are happening in our physical body to things that may be happening in our mind in terms of obsessive tendencies, anxiety, places where trauma might be held. A lot of the people who are coming to me now, because I treat everything, anything people come to me for, I'll treat, but it's been interesting that so many people are coming to me for release of stored trauma and stuck emotions. And so I work on the physical body doing an acupuncture treatment, and the release of emotions and the release of memory can be so powerful with these people that it almost overwhelms me. I'm amazed when I see it happen. It's trying to find out where the trauma or the emotion might be stored in the body, go to that area of the body, open it up, allow a deep sense of mindfulness into this area, and then it actually starts to leave. People may have memories, People cry on the table quite a lot. Sometimes tremendous fear comes out, which we have to work through and process through. Sometimes we go into areas of the unconscious. I often say, depending on the day and the person, sometimes I have to be an internal medicine doctor, sometimes I have to be a therapist, and sometimes I even have to be a shaman, helping people go into the shadow areas of themselves, into their memories. Yeah, and so it can get very intense sometimes, but the results I've seen and the freedom that people find afterwards, both in their physical bodies but also in their psyches, is impressive.
And hence, not just an acupuncturist, but a healer as well.
Well, I think those who I studied with were classical Chinese medicine practitioners. So what that means is anything a person brings in, you should be able to work with. And Chinese medicine is so old and so expansive that there is a way to work with everything. Not every healer works with everything. Everybody has their specialties. But if somebody's coming in suffering, I want to know a doorway in to help them.
That's awesome. That's awesome, Nicholas. So there are a lot of misconceptions about acupuncture.
What are they?
Well, you're going to tell us.
Oh, yeah?
What are some of the biggest myths? And when people approach with those misconceptions, how do you respond to them to break through, those ideas?
It's often funny that I used to talk to my friends about this, that I may have 10 people come in the day, and each person I would inevitably hear them say, oh, acupuncture treats that? And it could be anything. Some people think acupuncture only treats the emotions. Other people think acupuncture only treats pain. I think that's the most popular misconception. Other people think it only treats this or that, but it treats anything. Not every acupuncturist is good at treating everything, but the medicine itself can treat everything. And I think because it is such an old system, it's like a sauce that has cooked for a really, really long time. Like it's been reduced to its essence. So in a way, it can be a very simplistic system, but there's sophistication in this simplicity. So, and also, even with taking herbs with Chinese medicine, they're not chemicals, they're botanicals. Mm-hmm. So there's usually very little side effects. Especially with acupuncture, I think the side effects are very, very minimal. One may have what we call a healing crisis, which is a dramatic word, for a detox or for a release, like somebody crying during a treatment, release of emotion, somebody having phlegm come up, wow, releasing toxins, somebody having to use the bathroom a few times after the treatment. I mean, necessary detox events that happen, but the side effects are very few. I think, the thing that we have to deal with the most is that it can be a slow process, that you're trying to get the body overall to work better, to heal itself. So sometimes there's not immediate results. Sometimes there are immediate results, but especially if somebody has a chronic, long-term issue or condition, it takes a while to change the body, change the physiology, change the habits of the body. And, some people may lack patience for that. So often I have to coach them through that and help them to be more mindful at how their body is changing. And if maybe they feel they're getting worse, which is sometimes the natural course of the detoxification, the necessary detoxification, I have to coach them through that, welcome the release.
And then once on the other side, that's pretty part too. So it sounds like, or what I'm hearing from you, is that when you are with a client, and please by all means correct me if I'm inventing a new misconception or clarify, but this is more than just my shoulder hurts, I'm making an appointment with Nicholas, he'll treat me 3 times and my shoulder pain will be gone. There's a management component is what I'm hearing. Management not in the terms of control, but management in terms of thoughtfulness and planning.
It really depends on the goals of the person coming in. Okay. And also what is causing the problem. If a pain in the shoulder can be resolved in 1 or 2 sessions, that's great. But sometimes what happens is somebody comes in for a shoulder pain, which I've actually found, interestingly enough, that the shoulder sometimes relates to the emotions and the heart and the upper back. So nowadays, when there's somebody coming in for shoulder pain, I say, well, we'll try to resolve this just physically, but inevitably we always find there's something in there and it starts to be released. And I don't always even coach them. Just by doing the treatment, people start talking about things that they want to talk about. Because I find most people come in and they're seeing their doctors for 15 minutes and the doctor is rushed, and then maybe they see their therapist, but they don't really combine it. So to have somebody working on the physical body that will also talk to them about their stress, talk to them about their feelings.
Their mental health, it's so important.
Yeah, to unravel what might be causing the problem. Because also, if something goes away in 2 sessions, it could go away for a while, but it may come back. So if it comes back, you really haven't resolved what's causing it. Always the ideal is take away the symptom, but also start to go in and explore what might be causing it. It may be lifestyle, it may be stored trauma, it may be diet, it could be a whole host of things, so it's combining the therapeutic model of, the classic therapeutic model where you go see your psychotherapist or your therapist once a week and you spend 45 minutes with them, really unraveling things. And it's ongoing. You go for, I don't know, whatever, maybe years even. I think I did psychotherapy for 20 years. I'm a real old-fashioned New Yorker. But also combining it with the medical system where you're working on the physical body, changing the chemistry of the body, but spending the time. It's a really humanistic approach. Yeah, on the entire health.
Wow.
Yeah, on the person, the entire person.
Again, it's so empowering. So many different questions. You mentioned when you started and you would talk to your friends about this path that you were taking, and you would explain it to them. So I'm sure very often you still get calls. I'm thinking about starting acupuncture. Should I be a candidate for acupuncture? What is your advice when it's somebody contacting you, considering doing it for the first time?
Well, I really definitely respect everybody's belief systems and everybody's orientations, is that not every therapeutic model is resonant with every person. I have no judgment about that at all. And I have devoted myself to working in many different ways. So I try to assess and honor the way the person that I'm working with wants to talk about things. For example, I had somebody bring in her father visiting from Beijing, a Chinese guy. I thought, wow, that's a big compliment that a guy from China is wanting to come see me. So I actually told him, I said, don't tell your Chinese doctors back in Beijing that some American boy treated you with acupuncture. They'll say, don't listen to him.
Didn't count.
He actually, he actually cried because I was spending time in a different way. Here in the U.S., we like to talk about our emotions. We're very open about this. In a place like China, they don't talk about their emotions.
That's true.
If they're trying to convey their emotions, they'll say, my shoulder hurts, and you're supposed to know what that means. In Chinese medicine, you can know what that means. Maybe it's the heart, but we're not going to talk about the heart. We're going to talk about the shoulder. But we talk about the shoulder in a way that allows him to deal with his heart pain. So if people just want to talk about physical, we can talk about physical. If people want to get into their thoughts, their emotions, their challenges, their conflicts in their life, we can do that, do specific treatments for that, but also have a language for that. If people want to talk very mystical, we can talk very mystical. If they want to talk very spiritual, we can talk it very spiritual. But I think my job is to speak to the person in the language they want to speak in that's most going to resonate. Because if I'm speaking in, a language or a theme they're not resonating with, it doesn't really open them up to opening up to me and to opening up to the process. Because some people say, well, what if I don't believe in it? It's like, well, you don't really have to believe in it, because there's a therapeutic relationship we're trying to
establish.
Yeah, and for me, I didn't believe in it when I went. I didn't know anything about it. I mean, I believed in it because I was shown, because I felt better. And I think a lot of people call me because they're sick of feeling bad and nothing else has worked. I mean, that was my case. Nothing else was working. So I would try it. And then I saw the effect it had in me. And she also, I think, my first mentor taught me, just talk to somebody, let them lead how they want to talk. And they'll actually show how they want to work too. It's not my job to impose anything. So because as I say, I'm very, very serious person. We deal with some very, very serious issues, but I don't lead like in a serious way. It should be kind of fun and light, and then the heavy stuff will come up.
Right.
So I usually always kind of start with the physical because it's the lightest, the easiest to talk about. But inevitably, they come in with the heavy stuff,
and allow.
And I'm able to meet them there. I'm happy to go deep and heavy as much as we need, but then bring up the lightness. We should be laughing by the end of the session, even if we've been crying in the middle of it.
Always end on a high note.
Well,
Or try on a high note.
you know,
Silver
I mean,
linings.
we want, like the Dalai Lama says, we all want to be happy.
We do.
Sometimes we just have to, well, you know, walk through the, the dark forest to get there. But if we're walking together, it makes it easier. So I try to, I think, impart to them that I'll walk through that dark forest with them, whatever that means.
That sounds very reassuring, actually. If someone approaches and says, I have reservations, you're not turning them away and saying, come back when they're ready. On the contrary, you're saying...
I say I'll work with you in whatever way you need me to work with you. Yeah. And I just try to do that through the conversation. I let the other person lead, because I have no agenda. I'm just here to help.
Just here to help.
Yeah, and listen, and be present.
Well, this has been enlightening. Do you have any final words, thoughts, concepts you want to share with our audience? Summarize or close up?
You know, we were talking a little earlier just about mindfulness and, you know, especially the younger generation that, especially around what we've been through with the pandemic and everything. We were talking about how we never really got a chance to process all what we went through. Like we've jumped right back in. I think we're all so eager to get back into life. And, you know, there's so many distractions now, like our phones and the media and just everything we can get distracted by. But so doing mindfulness practices, I think we're all hearing how important they are, but, you know, so something where you have guided mindfulness, like acupuncture is kind of guided mindfulness. The treatment puts you in a natural, relaxed, sort of meditative state. Some people fall deeply asleep, some people have dreams, some people just go into a meditation, even people who've never meditated in their life. So it sort of opens the door to the ability to meditate, to be mindful, to be in your body. I almost say that it's like I'm like tying them to the table to be with themselves for an hour, forcing them to be with themselves. You know, they're agreeing to it, of course, but something most of us don't do. Even if we're at home lying in our bed or sitting on the couch, we usually have our phone with us, we're being distracted. We're never really with ourselves. And I think that's definitely causing a lot of the anxiety everybody's suffering from, the depression, but especially the anxiety and the anger and the angst and the overwhelm that everybody talks about constantly. So, you know, I just feel like it's my duty, but also my pleasure to just let people know what else is out there. That there are things like acupuncture that could help.
Help give them that time with themselves and learn about themselves. Well, I thank you. I know we were looking very much forward to learning more about acupuncture as the tool, the connection to mind and body, and really we could go on and on and on. You've been very, very insightful. Thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you, too. Thanks for this talk.
Absolutely.
Once again, thank you for joining us for this episode of the Brewing Wellness Podcast, brought to you by the UFT Member Assistance Program to support the mental health and well-being of our members. If you are a UFT member, the Member Assistance Program can be reached at 212-701-9620 or by emailing mapinfo@uft.org. And once again, please don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for listening.